And welcome into another edition of the Cubbie Corner. Brendan King and Max Thoma with you here. A lovely week in South Bend. Check out the view behind me. Check out the weather, BK. We got this weather coming with us soon now. It's 60 degrees out there.
Yeah, I was going to ask, is that a Bob Ross painting or is that actually Four Winds Field? Because the clouds look like a little Bob Ross. I'll put a little touch of white here.
Oh, yeah. He is mesmerizing with those clouds. So it's all about
or the trees.
The finesse brush. You got to get that tiny little brush. Were you ever a painter? I don't think I ever made it past finger painting.
No, I have no artistic ability in any shape or fashion. So
what's great? We talk about what we're gonna talk about on the Cubbie Corner, and then we're talking about painting clouds and painting trees.
That's okay.
And we're not talking about Seiya Suzuki.
Yeah.
Big day for the Cubs.
Big day for the Cubs, indeed. I was just going to follow up. I had to take one art class in high school, and I got a C. So that should tell you everything you need to know about my artistic talent. But
yeah, I feel like you got to grade art, at least in like a school setting, more on effort than talent.
Yeah. Unfortunately, my teacher did not see that. Anyway. So last week's episode is brought to you by the letter C, and I got a C in art class. That's all you need to know.
Beautiful. Callback. It's a callback, folks.
Seiya Suzuki. The people that are saying like, oh, this is automatically like Shohei Ohtani. I think we got to watch the guy play, but I think there's one thing for sure. He's got a heck of a lot of talent, and you wouldn't be making $85 million in Major League Baseball if he didn't have a lot of talent. So where he fits in the lineup, that's still to be determined. That's David Ross's decision to make. But I think, if anything, I mean, this guy's going to be flying in pretty much cold to Arizona, not knowing anybody. And if there's one thing for sure about that Cubs locker room, Max, as you know, they make guys feel welcome pretty quick. So that's going to be a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it is an interesting situation. Obviously, they open up, just a couple of days before we do, and he's got to, acclimate himself to the U.S., to the MLB, to his team. But a five-tool guy, who I love on Twitter is just Marcus Stroman, because he's such a hype man. And I saw him retweet a video of Suzuki just dropping an absolute nuke. So I think the friendly confines are going to be very excited to see him in those Cubbie pinstripes this season. So that should be fun. Also, what we got going on? Well, we're both rocking the Midwest League champs from 2019, South Bend Cubs, the reigning Midwest League champs. Midwest League is back. All the names from all the former MILB league names are back. That was announced really within the last few minutes here on a Wednesday afternoon.
That's cool. And, the league names, I think, built up its own, each league kind of had its own figure and own personality, right? When you think about Cal League Baseball, Midwest League Baseball, and Eastern League Baseball, Southern League, you could go on and on. But the names are classic. We can't say anymore, right? We're the last ever Midwest League champions. So I guess we're just going to have to win title after title if we want to keep that going. But I'm very glad it's back. It just rolls off the tongue really well, doesn't it?
Midwest
League. So good.
I get used to saying it. One of my first thoughts actually was, did you see that tweet about how much that guy spent on Tom Brady's last touchdown pass?
Yeah, $500,000.
$500,000. So obviously that's not going to be Brady's last touchdown pass anymore. I'm thinking, did they auction off the ball that Cole Roederer caught in the center field in Iowa?
Or like sell an NFT of the celebration in Clinton's like, hey, this is the last ever Midwest League NFT. It's like, nope.
Yeah, psych, wrong. High A Central, and now we're back. We're doing it again. So on top of the Midwest League, on top of the Midwest League being back, on top of Suzuki getting signed, it's also opening day. It's just a couple of weeks away from Friday, 3 weeks away from Friday, I should say. April 8th, single game tickets on sale. You can purchase them online at southbendcubs.com. You can call the box office, or you can come on down to the box office as well. April 8th, you can also get rooftop tickets. The United Federal Credit Union rooftop. They have 10 nights this year. One of them is opening night, BK. Opening night is so close, and it's going to be such a treat to be back calling baseball here at Four Winds Field.
Yeah, and I know how much you love elevated surfaces. So the United Federal Credit Union rooftop, that's always fun, man. Especially
it's a little higher than me right now.
Yes, if you get the weather that you're seeing right now in the 574 on opening day, which we certainly hope, but I mean that's you're like, see, you said come on down. You're like Price is Right motto right now. Like There you go.
Come
exactly.
on down. You
Come
are
on
the
down.
next viewer on
Yeah.
the United Federal Credit Union rooftop.
That's perfect. There's nothing better in the summer, man. I mean, I remember going up there when it was just being built, and we saw the view. We were like, man, this is gonna be sick, and that's what it exactly turned out to be.
Yeah, the view is fantastic, and I mean the cloud cover right now with this sky. I'm hoping this is exactly what it's like on Friday night, April 8th. Hopefully we get some pristine weather, and then nothing better than the sun sets as the game gets into the latter innings. Should be a good opening night. It's now the Midwest League champs versus the last ever and first ever High A Central champs in the South Bend Cubs and the Quad Cities Riverbends.
I didn't even think about that, but I mean, they're gonna have to cover us on Sports Center at that point. I mean, this is supreme stuff.
Yeah, Midwest League is back, and we're also back on the Cubbie Corner with an interview. We got an interview we got to get to here. Brendon King, you sat down with Brendon Little. Tell me about that interview.
Yeah, I think B. Little. You think about a guy that, when you think about maturity from being drafted to where you are now. Oh, you're pointing to you.
Oh, you said maturity.
Oh, so you. So
you think of this. You think of this mug, right?
Exactly. Here. That's the first thing I think of. Brendon was the first round pick and transferred from North Carolina, went to junior college, still ended up being a first rounder. That kind of pressure, Max, that can topple just about anybody. And at first, I think it was clear that Brendon was trying to find his stride in the game of pro baseball, but then he dealt with some injuries, but he made it to AAA last year. He's now a full-time reliever, at least he was last season, and he's not sure what his role is going to be yet this year. We're going to talk about that in the interview, but as you guys know from watching him in South Bend, in 2018, a full-time starter, made 6 starts in 2019, was very good. Got to AA last season, got to AAA as well. So, he's a guy with a nasty curveball that is figuring it out, first-round pick talent. So, if he puts it together this year in the early start, April, May, Max, you might be seeing him at Wrigley pretty soon, depending on what happens.
So let's hear from the man himself, Brendon Little, on the Cubbie Corner.
We welcome you to the Cubbie Corner here on SouthBendCubs.com. South Bend Cubs broadcaster Brendon King with you, joined by another Brendon and a great South Bend Cub at that. It's Brendon Little, former first-round pick of the Chicago Cubs, as well, a 2018 and 2019 South Bend Cub. B, it's good to see you, man. We were just talking off the air that you've been out in Arizona pretty much longer than anybody else. So I'm sure it feels good to finally have the workouts getting going.
Yeah. Definitely not something to brag about being out in Arizona too long. Always under not the best terms, but it's always gorgeous to be here, and it's picking up now. So it feels like baseball again, which is good.
Yeah, you mentioned you moved out there with your fiance, so that's awesome. But I was going to ask you, the last week or so since the lockout ended and the major league guys are getting into town, how much more packed has the facility been over the last week?
No, it's been crazy. Just obviously not only just more players and everything, but now the media's here. They set up a couple of tents. They have like their little camera studios out here and everything. So this place is definitely buzzing. It just makes it a lot more fun. Even just walking up to the facility, just seeing guys already getting after it like early in the morning. Definitely just makes it more fun for sure.
Does it feel 100% normal? Because I think last year you might have gotten a taste of it, right? But you mentioned the media actually being with you guys and people walking around. Does it feel like maybe it did in 2019?
I think so. Last year was definitely weird because everything was roped off. It was just players and staff. But having these, the one thing I always remember is these 2 media tents that I have just behind me here. I don't know if you can see them, whatever. But so now that those are back, it definitely feels more like it. In the backfields, you got people kind of parking, lining up, coming to watch all the live BPs. So they're letting people back in. So it's starting to feel more like it, and especially in our main field, we just have people catching foul balls, everything like that, asking for autographs for the big leaguers. So it definitely does, yeah.
And as you get ready for opening day as well, Brendon, you're 25 years old now. When you were in South Bend, that was at first in South Bend in 2018, that was your second pro year after some time in Eugene. So being 25, and again, life changes for you too, now being engaged, how much different does it feel kind of being one of the older pitchers out there that some lefties now may look up to?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely just a whole different dynamic. I definitely feel like I just the older you get, like the more like solidified become my routine. That's what everyone has always said and everything. So now I feel like I can answer some questions that some of the younger guys may have, coaches to talk to, stuff like that. But even kind of like the reason why I do some things, within my routine. So I just feel like I just have a much better idea of how to be more efficient with my time, smarter in the training. So everything just feels like it just moves smoother and more efficiently, like each year that I've been here. Which helps me feel confident in the training. So looking forward to get back out there and hopefully translate what we're working on.
Right. I was asking Andy Weber this a few weeks ago of maybe it's entirely different for hitters, but as a pitcher, is there a certain amount of sides or even simulated games or games against another minor league squad that you need to feel like, all right, I'm good to go for April?
Yeah. So it's interesting you brought that up. So obviously right now this past fall, like I was injured, had a stress fracture in my elbow, recovering, throwing now and everything. So when I asked them, I'm like, so what do I have to do? From a organization standpoint, I believe it's 8. It's about 8 bullpens or something, whether it's just touching the mound with live BPs and everything. So 8 bullpens and then a handful of live BPs. For me personally, I would like 2 live BPs, I think, especially as I'm like kind of transitioning from a starter. You don't need as much, you don't need to build up as much volume. So 2 live BPs and however many bullpens, maybe, the 6 to 8, like they recommend, feels right. Then,
Yeah, it's interesting you brought that up, Brendon, because I was going to ask you about that next. Of last year, you got consistent reps from AA to AAA, but they were all as a relievers. And fans in South Bend watching this, they would know you as a starter, because in South Bend in 2018, you pitched over 100 innings. You got plenty of work. In 19, you jumped around a little bit, but you made 6 starts in South Bend. I think an ERA under 1.8, very good. But now you've kind of transitioned to that reliever role. Are you fully like entrenched in that, and is becoming a reliever now what you're going to do?
It's a good question. No, like right now, for me personally, the most important thing is that I can just get out there consistently. Like I mean, no one ever thinks that they're going to be like catch like an injury bug, but obviously I'm building up this rap sheet, which is that's just the worst thing. But so now for me to pitch consistently, that's what's most important. So it's a lot easier to get those consistent, especially shorter stint, more appearances, more experience relieving. I wouldn't take me starting completely off the table. The best example I could do is like last year, for example, like kind of like a Justin Steele, how he, pitched most of it out of the bullpen, did see some starts. I could see myself in a very similar like role, mostly bullpen, kind of bridging the gap from starter to relief or starter to closer. So a couple longer innings, longer relief, with the possibility of some starts. So, this year I just got to make myself available, and that's kind of just my main goal for now.
Yeah. Which is great. But like, here's an interesting question about like going to AAA and making, 13, 14 appearances out of the pen. Are you glad in a way that happened? Because of course, when you come out of the pen, there's a more limited amount of work that you got to do, or maybe the workload's a little bit shorter of the guys you need to face. When you start, you're anticipating going 5-6 innings, right? So are you glad you got those initial AAA reps out of the bullpen where, all right, I just need to get this guy or these next few guys and I'll be good?
Yeah, no, it's definitely a great way to get like kind of like your feet wet, out of the bullpen, just to get that, get the taste of what AAA is like, kind of get in, get out, hopefully just kind of rely on stuff to, to have a successful outing. I am like, I had relieved before I, in like summer ball. That was before I got drafted by the Cubs and everything. So relieving isn't completely foreign to me. It's a completely different mindset. I like both of them, honestly. So wherever the need is, you know, I'm definitely happy to fill. But for that, you know, time, that the stint that I was in AAA, like it was nice coming out of the bullpen. And it's just, it helps you just simplify everything. It's like, okay, I'm going to throw 2 pitches rather than maybe 3 or 4, you know, less pitches, just focus on hitting a couple spots and then get out. Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned the work in summer ball. Like, I know you were in Bourne because the summer you were in Bourne, I was in Orleans. I remember like calling a couple of your relief outings, and that's like how I initially knew you before 18. But talk about getting your feet wet in AAA, because you know hitters talk about all the time that like AA is the first benchmark. If you could hit in AA, you could probably hit in the bigs. What's pitching in AAA like? What do you got to figure out?
For the most part, I would say, like, you know, one thing that I was concerned about was obviously that's when the baseball switch as well. So you switch to kind of like the major league ball.
Yep.
So that was an early initial concern, just because like I throw like a spike curve. So like I'm on top of the laces, but the laces are different. The leather's a little bit harder or tighter, I should say. So, but I mean, you got to be able to make that adjustment quick. So there was that. I'd always heard that the zone tightens up a little bit. I never found that to be anything that was too major.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest thing for sure is like those guys, they have a lot more power. Like if you make a mistake, instead of like maybe a fly ball, it's a home run. So like you have to be a lot more intentional with how you're pitching. I would say like AA for the most part, like if one of your pitches is kind of rolling, like let's just say like the elevated fastball, like those guys, like instead of swinging out of the zone, like if you can't show them something else, they'll spit on it pretty early. So you just have to be a lot more intentional with how like you might be setting someone up, and definitely got to have 2 pitches there. But yeah, just they just have a lot more power, can do a lot more damage. That's been the biggest thing that stood out to me.
Brendon, let's go back to your first year in South Bend, because as mentioned, over 100 innings, many starts. You're pretty much consistently pitching every 5-6 days. As a young guy at the time, first round pick, was that helpful just to know that you had those reps coming, especially when, again, you know, anytime somebody's a first round pick, you're going to have hype around you, you're going to have a little pressure around you. So was it nice knowing that I'm going to take them out every 5th day, guaranteed here. I'm going to be able to make mistakes, but get my stuff done.
It was like, especially like now, like looking back on it, like you can see things a little bit more clear. Like, yes, like everything was pretty, for the most part, like guaranteed. Like you were going to take them out every 5th day, 6th day, whatever it was. Like, I'm sure if I would have been like, hey, like I need an extra day, like I would have gotten it. And kind of looking back on it, I think we're like, the one thing that like stands out to me where I am now versus where I was then in terms of just who I was as a player is early on, like I especially wanted to show that like I could be very coachable, and wanted to, you know, every 5th day or something, like I wanted to meet with the pitching coach, go over stuff, like talk about how things went, wanted to show that like I was interested in this, willing to learn and everything, which was great and everything. We obviously have great coaches here, great staff, but where the differences between then and now is now I feel like I know myself a lot more, so I can either ask more direct questions, or I feel like I can just do a better job of filtering information, so I don't have to try as much stuff and go through as much trial and error of like, I don't know, whether it's even just like a pitch or something mechanically. Like that's the other thing. Like I wanted to like kind of like get the mechanics down pat. So like that wasn't something I had to think about, where now I feel like, you know, you can't be thinking about that pitching, you know, in AAA, AA, AAA, whatever. You just have to go and, you know, compete against a hitter, where before, like I was definitely getting kind of caught up with myself and trying to perfect something that, you know, probably can't be perfected.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's all part of growth too, right? And I think you came into the organization. I remember talking about this with you I can't remember, it was some road ballpark when like we were doing a story for the game program or whatever, but you came into the organization not only with the old regime, the World Series, you know, Epstein and Madden and all those guys, but John Lester is already there. Your first year at the organization, Cole Hamels comes in, and then Cole Hamels comes back at 19. So what was it like for you to not only have, like you said, the coaching staff to go to, but a guy like John Lester, a guy like Cole Hamels to ask questions just steps away?
Yeah, that was cool. Like Cole Hamels, especially. I remember one day it was actually him and Chris Bryant. They kind of had all the minor leaguers back behind the batting cages and just kind of like talked to us. Honestly, mostly about like mindset, mostly about being competitive with everything, with being intentional with reps in the weight room and everything. But I mean, Cole Hamels was also cool just because I was grew up outside of Philadelphia, so I'd always watched him. So I definitely always tried to like stay out of like the big leaguers' way and everything. But like those were obviously guys that I would like kind of watch from afar in the weight room, see what they're doing, kind of how they manage workloads and, you know, are able to stay healthy for so long, you know, because obviously that was something that I'd been struggling with. But yeah, it had always been cool. And being able to talk to coaches who coach them, you know, to be able to go over like, you know, I remember talking to one of our pitching coordinators about like some drills that John Lester had been doing. So I was able to give them a try and, you know, just to see how they are able to like simplify the game. I mean, that's something that everyone always said growing up, whatever, like you have to be able to simplify it. Like that was always the one thing I was like, yeah, like, okay. Like, I'm sure, yeah, that sounds right. But like the older I get, like every year, like now it just makes more and more sense. So to be able to look back at like some of the drills that I was doing, like some of the stuff that, you know, kind of John Lester had been doing, like it makes sense to me now. And I guess I wish it made more sense to me then, but yeah.
Well, again, I think a big theme of this interview has definitely been growth, and again, great to catch up. Is there a pitch specifically that you're working on in 2022? I know years ago we talked about the changeup, but if not something new, is there a pitch you're trying to refine this year coming back from injury?
Yeah. So the one staple pitch that I've always had been like my curveball. So that's been able to take up in velocity, especially now that I'm working at the bullpen. So that one's been kind of the mainstay for me. The one that I worked on last year, so 2021, was a sinker. So rather than now everything's so analytical, it's a lot easier to compare fastballs and, you know, dive into it. So I never had, or the one thing I was always fighting with my four seam was getting better vertical break on it, to kind of create the separation between vertical break, like staying high, and then the spike curveball off of that. So it was just something that I'd always been fighting and always been tinkering with, that eventually got to the point where it was like, okay, like let's see how like a sinker is. And it was something that played up for me instantly and was a huge pitch for me last year. And you know, I feel like I've been able to throw that with like great confidence. So coming into this year, the one spot that I felt like I kind of struggled with is because starting sinker was kind of that up and into righties. So another thing about and kind of like the double and triple A levels is you want something and you have to be able to control like the four quadrants of the strike zone. So I always felt like I had like to a right-handed batter, like high and away and then both low, but it was that up and into righties that, you know, they would kind of be able to dive over the plate on a sinker and take it the other way. So for this year coming into it, I'm just really buying into this kind of cut on my four seam. So I definitely don't want to call it a cutter, but something that's going to move a little bit glove side, but still have like the fastball velocity that I'm going to need. So cutting fastball maybe, but don't want to get the terminology wrong with the cutter, because it needs to be. I need to be able to throw it hard. So
right.
But that's the 2022 goal.
Right. So totally random question here. I think of anybody I've ever met in the game, you have the nicest autograph of anybody, because you actually write out your full name and like it's very nice handwriting. I've always wanted to ask you this question of like, Why did you always take pride in like writing your full name every single time for every fan?
Yeah. Well, I had always liked. Sorry, I don't. Is that super loud? Real quick.
No, it's all good.
Okay, cool. I had always liked autographs where you can read everything because like when I was a kid or something, I might go on like eBay and be like, look up whoever's autograph or something, and I'd be like, is that even it? Like I would have to go to Google and be like, okay, like I think that's the autograph that I want, but like I didn't know. So like that had always bothered me in like the back of my mind. And then one year when I was playing for Bourne, we were like signing autographs or something, and my autograph was pretty much just like a big B, like, and then it'd pretty much be like BDN, whatever, super short, and then I'd write out Little. And this one guy like signed the autograph, and like I'd started walking away, and he was just like, hey you, like Brendon. And I'm like, yeah. He's like, what is this? And he like pointed down to it. He's like, I can't even read this. This is scribble. And I was just like so taken back by it. He was like, he was pretty much just like, this is a terrible autograph. He's like, your mother gave you a name. You should write it out. And I'm like,
this is a fan?
Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
My God.
And I was just like, oh, dang. I'm like, yeah. So literally ever since then, I'm like, it was kind of a combination between the two. Like now it's easy to be like, okay, like Brendon Little, like you can read the letters. But it was definitely from that fan. Like from that day on is when I started like writing it fully out. But yeah, he was just like, your mother gave you a name. Like you should write it out. Like you should be proud of it. You should write it out. I'm like, dang, okay. But I was really like taken aback when he said that, because he was just like, this is terrible. All right.
Hey, some guys develop their games in Cape Cod. Some guys develop their autographs. So it's for some guys it's both. So
yeah.
That's hilarious. That's hilarious. That's Brendon Little, 2018-2019 South Bend Cub, with us on the Cubbie Corner. Brendon, we're all rooting for you in South Bend, man. Hope you make the show. We hope to see you at Wrigley soon, and appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me on.
And there you have BK's interview with Brendon Little. BK, what was your biggest takeaways from that sit down?
Again, I've known Brendon for a long time now, and it's going back 4 years or so. He was a lot more quiet when we first met him, and just a guy that has really matured. He's now engaged, and after we got off that call, his now fiance and him just bought a house, and he is literally getting 4 workouts a day because he works out by himself in the morning. He does the team stuff in Arizona, then he does his own personal work, and then when he goes home, his now fiance is making him paint the entire kitchen and cabinets when he goes home. And he's like, I'm gonna blow my back out doing this. So it's like, dude, you're getting 4 workouts a day.
That's a lot of effort. So we went from Bob Ross to now Brendon Little's doing some painting as well. Can he learn from my landscape?
Well, I think painting. I don't know if Bob Ross painted too many cabinets in his day.
Yeah, that'd be a lot of money to see somebody painting something, just a normal white shade of tan.
Be a little boring. It's like, we're gonna put a couple more strokes here, and it's gonna look the exact same.
Oh yeah, this cabinet's gonna look just like that cabinet I just did, and that's gonna look like all of the other 30 cabinets and drawers in here.
Oh man, that's awesome. But no, I'm excited, Max. April 8th is gonna be here before you know it. Obviously, just a few more weeks to go, and I think more than anything, we both write for the game program that the South Bend Cubs fans will receive on their way into the doors. That a lot of those articles are going to be based around, right, like just getting back to what we know, full time, no distraction, ready to roll. Now Midwest League. I mean, can you sum that up even better? That the Midwest League is coming back, and you're getting back to full normalcy. It's pretty cool.
You just stole the word right out of my mouth. I was going to say it's a return to normalcy. Last year we had some normalcy at the end there, but it was kind of a fluid situation the entire year. Things were always changing, and it was just kind of a tough situation, for everybody around the world, right? But we got normalcy, we got baseball around the corner, we got beautiful weather. We're painting. Maybe I'll be painting some stuff. We'll hand out to some fans at the gates if anybody would want that, but they don't.
You're gonna paint. You gotta paint your chest with the Midwest League logo.
I'll go. We don't really have the personnel in the booth to do. I go CU, you go BS, I guess. Although BS is not a great
painting BS on your chest probably wouldn't be the best.
You don't have me. If I go to the bathroom and you're alone in the booth, that's gonna look pretty bad, I think.
Well, unless there was a strike call that you're like, that was definitely a ball. You could just hand to me.
Oh yeah, and then
That's
I duck out of the camera, and you're just exposed right there.
Exactly.
Okay, so
And that would go over very well.
I'll
sure
bring
we'll
the
see.
paint, you bring the brush, and we'll see you next time on the Cubbie Corner. Boom. Okay, I like that.